Hello, I'm Daphne Wallace, Second Vice President of the United Nurses of Alberta. Not quite a senior yet, but my husband is. Anyway, very interesting discussion. I just have a couple of comments to make. First, with regards to the comments about the finance minister having open houses and wanting input. That may be very, very true, that he's had these open houses. I've certainly written letters to my MLAs about some situations that are happening in Alberta right now, and I haven't even had the dignity of a response. So there may be open houses, but I don't think there's much credence put to what the citizens and taxpayers of Alberta are telling the government. I really appreciated the comments on healthcare because I am a registered nurse and have worked as a registered nurse for almost 40 years. And up until 3 months ago, I was a frontline worker, working 12-hour night shifts at the Foothills Hospital in Calgary. So I know firsthand what one of the major problems is with the increase in expenditures in healthcare, or a couple. One is, as Raj said, is the management. We've got more managers today than we ever had. It would be nice to know what to do. And we don't need to be an economist to understand some of the issues. We have patients, and bed blocker is not a nice term, but it is a common term, that are waiting long-term care placement or home care. They're discharged into the communities or long-term care or extended care facilities long before they are ready to, oftentimes in private for-profit facilities with inadequate and untrained staff. And this results in complications, further illnesses that result in readmission to acute care facilities costing thousands and thousands of dollars a year. As frontline workers, we have been saying for years that it's not just long-term care beds, it's the continuum of care. Care in the community, care in long-term care, care in extended care facilities. In seniors' homes, we've got to have the proper placement, we've got to have the proper people taking care of those patients and citizens. And I don't think that the progressive conservative government is hearing the concerns of the citizens of this province.
Neil Evans, angry, disillusioned senior citizen of Alberta. I think there's no question about the policies of the government of Alberta. They are designed to protect the tax interests of the rich in this province. What we've got is an absolutely shameful record when it comes to long-term care, seniors benefits, health, other health issues, education, overcrowded classrooms. Anybody who thinks that conditions in schools today are what they were 10 or 20 years ago ought to go find out, because there has been a deterioration. Why should we think of ourselves as proud Albertans? Has nothing to do with the interests of this government, of the PC party, in social justice, fairness, equity. These are values that have disappeared from their consciousness. And I, for one, am very upset about it. I'd love to recommend that everybody pick up or go online and read the current issue of Walrus, where there is a very informative article on tax issues in Canada, and where the author quotes the author of a book called "Tax is Not a Four-Letter Word." The author of this book alleges that the 30-year struggle of the far right to reduce the size of government, to get government out of our lives, has been won. We've let them win. It's time to renew the struggle and take that victory away from them.
Hi, my name's Kelly. I've lived in Edmonton my whole life, and I have a question for Mr. Dorward. Hi. Hi there. I would like to know your opinion of Premier Peter Lougheed's government's royalty rates, what they demanded from companies to extract our resources, the rates that they required. I'd like to know your opinion about that.
Well, I'm going to give you the 90-second answer because that's about, but I'll wait till he cuts me off. You know, it's a balance issue and it's a tough one. And Premier Stelmach did a review of the royalty rates prior to him becoming the Premier, and things did not turn out very well with respect to that. and he made changes in the early part of his leadership relative to the companies coming back and the furor over whether or not those changes that were made at that time were the correct ones. I can tell you that I'm on the front line of working with businesses who are considering coming to Alberta. And in Alberta, we have two big negatives for companies coming: the cost of construction and the operating cost downstream. We have incredible positives, which are a stable government of a close proximity to markets, to a situation. Excuse me, ladies.
Can I so what
Okay, I don't think I have the same take on what happened with Ed Stelmach's royalty review as David does. They did get into some flack from the oil companies, but it was after the price of oil dropped. And then, of course, the drilling rigs, and it's always cyclical. The drilling rigs, and I think the other thing was a little bit of a capital strike. It was a little bit of the companies shutting down their operations to put pressure on the government. But it wasn't until about a year later, when the price of oil dropped, that there was such a significant impact on drilling and conventional oil and gas in the province. So it was, the government made changes, but when David said it wasn't a very good experience, it wasn't a very good experience for the government, because the oil industry transferred their allegiance and their finances to the Wildrose Party, and creating a major headache for this government.
David, with all due respect, I gotta disagree. The price of oil went from $147 a barrel to $33 a barrel. As you know, the price of gas went from $14 to $2. Our best customer went bankrupt, and we had a major international banking crisis. Suddenly, banks wouldn't lend corporations money. Another thing that made it difficult for business is there is a lot of red tape, but it doesn't actually achieve the protections of the environment and the society that we need to. And it actually hurts business. Their input costs are high because of a lot of silly rules. And also, government has dropped the ball on the environment. Because we don't have independent monitoring of the environment, because our credibility and integrity is at risk, our neighboring partners don't want our pipelines and product to go through their areas to get to market. We were one vote shy of Europe boycotting our oil product because we've dropped the ball on the environment. And also, the input costs for business are expensive because there's lack of skilled labor. Now, we have a lot of injured workers, not injured at work through WCB. They're Albertans who are sick or injured through life. And when you're waiting for a hip or knee replacement for 2 years, industry is paying disability insurance. You're losing your skill. It's not good for you as an individual and family. The education system does not meet the education needs of our society. Our kids are dropping out in record numbers. Look, you don't all have to be doctors and PhDs and economists. We do need boilermakers and plumbers, and the cost of education is so much, especially if you're a family in a small town or a low-income family that lives in town. You got 4 kids, they got to pay room and board, $1,000 a month, and $7 grand a year tuition. Our kids are saying, you know what? I'd rather get a $15, $20 an hour job. David, it's very simplistic to say it was the royalties. It wasn't the royalties. It was all these other factors combined that actually affected industry. Because we have the citizens. They just need to get an education system that gets them the skills and trades, and it can be lifelong learning. It's not just for the kids. It's for 30, 40-year-olds. It's for women returning to the labor workforce. If we actually have good public daycare, many parents, majority of them women, can work part-time. Just simple things like that would actually help business, help industry, help reduce the cost of doing business in this province, and improve the lives of citizens.
I am mad like hell, to put it mildly. And I have about 73 questions, but I will do one. And it's for you, the representative of the Progressive Conservative Party. And I want to tell you, I want a refund for that trip that Iris Evans made to Norway. And I want it now, because I want to know what did she learn on a trip to Norway. Why are we so stupid and blindfolded in our government management with the resources we have? Why can we not learn from other countries? Norway, that is the leader in social democracy. Give me the refund now as a taxpayer. Where is the stuff you have learned from that trip. It was a few years ago, and it's overdue.
I will give you my card after, and I will talk to Iris Evans, because I need to talk to her about something else. She's no longer an MLA, but I will call her, and I will ask her about that, and then I'll respond back to you. Because I don't know the answer to that. But I will find out, and then can we communicate, and I'll get the answer for you?
That's not a good answer now.
Well, I apologize, but I must say that I don't make up phony baloney answers, and I don't give phony baloney stuff. I deal with the facts as I know them, and I don't know the answer to that, man, but I will find out for you what the purpose of that trip was and all that, and I hope it helps them. And then you'll only have 72. And I might even take a couple of more of those and try them on for size 2.
Thank you, Dave.
I was there when Iris went to Norway, and she went to study royalties. And of course, she didn't report back what she found, which is that royalties in Norway are very much higher than they are in Alberta. And not only that, they've been accumulating the royalty revenue. All of it goes into the fund. It's not spent on program spending. And they have now a fund which is modeled precisely on Peter Lougheed's heritage fund, by the way, of $600 billion. And it's all invested out of Norway, so it doesn't distort their economy. And it has raised Norway's standard of living and the level of services they receive to amongst the highest in the world. So that's what she didn't tell us when she came back. I also went on a royalty trip, though. About 5 years ago, I flew up to Alaska, to the capital, Juneau, and I met with lawmakers on both sides of the House, and I got briefed by the governor's staff, and I met the governor of Alaska at that time, and they had gone through a process of reevaluating their royalties, and they looked at Alberta very closely, and they looked at other jurisdictions, and they raised their royalties quite a bit. The oil companies, of course, said we're leaving and we're never coming back, but they're still there now. And interestingly, at $100 a barrel, Alaska now charges 62% more royalties at $100 a barrel price than we do here in Alberta. Now that was brought in under a governor whose name was Sarah Palin. And I want to ask this question. If a gun-toting, Bible-thumping, right-wing Republican can get fair value for royalties, what the hell's wrong with our people? And I have a picture with her on my webpage.
You know, I'm just going to add to what Brian said. First of all, what they should do is just take a car ride or LRT ride down to the University of Alberta, because we got some of the best brains in the world right here, and they'll give them the international evidence of what are best practices and who does what. If you want to travel outside of Alberta, go to Newfoundland, go to Alaska. Go to the elected members in Alberta who are here, who are in the Premier Lougheed government, even before you go to Norway. Now, with respect to travel, in absolute dollars, these are very expensive first-class flights, even Premier's travel, but it's not a lot of money. But what it is, it's a symbolic measure. When the leaders behave that way, you demoralize the rest of the team that actually builds the province, which is the frontline staff. In Alberta Health Services, when the managers and the minister and these big people are sipping at the trough, the morale of the doctors is 31%, the morale of the nurses and the rest of the staff, probably the hardest working, best staff in the country, or if not the world, is 58%. And they won't even report it anymore. When you demoralize staff, your stress levels go up, your cortisol level is high. As a physician, you don't need to be a doctor to understand this. You're going to get sick, your body's going to break down, you don't have enough staff, whether it's teaching, whether it's healthcare, in any of the social services fields, where you're looking after human beings, suddenly your costs are going to go up because of sickness. And lastly, people do their best and they still show up to work on time and leave on time, but your productivity drops when the leaders live like kings and queens, while Albertans are expected to take less. So not only is it royalties, but it's the whole thing. It's a behavior of elected peoples who aren't enlightened anymore. Thank you.
we've heard how regressive and unfair and unjust the flat tax is. So I'm wondering, Mr. Dorman, what are you doing towards getting rid of that regressive tax?
Yeah, the word regressive and flat are not exactly the same, but a regressive tax is one that penalizes people in the lower end. Folks, I really would like in 90 seconds to answer the question. I mean, that's what I'm supposed to do. And when I mean, if you have a disagreement with what I'm saying, I appreciate that. But chewing up the time is, I don't think, going to be the right way to handle it. I'm just telling you facts. I understand taxation. I'm trying to say that flat tax is quite the opposite of a regressive tax. In fact, in Alberta, somebody who earns $18,000 pays zero Alberta tax. A single taxpayer in a home does not pay any Alberta tax on $36,000. So there is no tax. We have a two-rate tax, 0 and 10%. I won't personally be doing anything with respect to the flat tax. There's no indication from a lot of people out there. There was nobody that discussed the tax regime being the flat tax or the two-rate system, 0 and 10. This fall at those forums. So if there's an overwhelming support to look at that regime, I'm sure the minister will do that. But we have not heard that in a big, huge way.
I got to respond to this. It's turning into a debate. David, with all due respect, you're an accountant, so your whole life and career is about tax deferral, tax loopholes, and tax cuts for the wealthiest. Okay? You got H&R Block. The majority of working families go to H&R Block. I've given you evidence that the flat tax is actually a tax increase for the low income and middle income, and that's your tax cut. There's the evidence that was given. That's a regressive tax because it punishes the very people that drive the economy, the middle income families and regular working families. Secondly, other regressive taxes are school fees, which are like university tuition. High cost of tuition in the wealthiest place. These are regressive taxes. You know what? Going after the seniors in the drug program, it's a tax on the sick. That's a regressive tax. Right. These are regressive taxes. We need to put the word progressive back into this province, and that's what the Alberta Liberals aim to do. David, I don't mean any disrespect on a personal level, but you referenced that you're an accountant, and I'm not an accountant.
Well, I don't think we need to personalize this. I think the politics of it is what's important. And in my view, a flat tax is an extremely regressive tax, because what happened was, although they increased the personal exemption, what they actually did was increase the marginal tax rate on middle income people. And they now pay a lot more tax than they used to pay. And I gave the numbers, some sample numbers, at the same time cutting taxes on the very wealthiest. So in my view, it is a regressive tax. A progressive tax is defined as one in which there are increasing levels of taxation as your income rises. That is a progressive tax. A flat tax is not a progressive tax. And I don't accept at all that that you could call it anything else but regressive.
I gather the Progressive Conservative Party is not going to consider increasing taxes for citizens. I gather it's not going to consider increasing royalties. I gather it's not going to consider increasing business taxes. How do you, is the only way the problem of expenditures exceeding revenues going to be solved is by further cuts? How do you propose to bridge this gap that Dr. McMillan has made so clear to us today?
Great question, thank you. With respect to the personal and the corporate taxes, no, there are no plans to increase those. With respect to the royalties, as Mr. Mason already pointed out, the royalties naturally increase here soon in the next 3-4 years. What happened was the royalty regime that was put into place years ago allowed the oil companies to be able to recover a portion of their capital investment into the province, which was a necessary thing in order to encourage them to come, quite frankly. Notice that Saskatchewan, for example, doesn't have a bitumen situation whereby they have royalties from that at all, because they didn't have the investment. I'm not criticizing Saskatchewan. their heavy oil is their oil sands are way under the ground, further than ours. That there are other reasons. But the royalty regime was necessary in order to encourage the companies to come and make those capital investments. Those come off, and those deals come off, and so there's more royalty money going to come into the province in the future.
So we're going to become forever dependent on oil revenues. And we can look forward to much the same as we've got now
I think
in terms of services.
The number that we have in, as I stated, was about $7 billion. If tomorrow the world did not need any more oil, we would not have the $7 million. And clearly, in order to have the same amount of service, we would have to find another source for that $7 million. That's clear. I mean, there's nothing else you can do. That's not forecast, what I just said. And therefore, we probably should be okay. If this was 2.5 weeks from right now, I'd be in a better position to talk about it, because Minister Hunter would have released the budget he's going to in 2 weeks. It'll be a very interesting budget for everybody to see a number, and you'll see a 4-year plan in that budget going forward. So if you have any questions or want to go through that budget, contact me and we can do that. That's a very good question, and I appreciate that. It's a balancing thing, you're absolutely right. Does that help?
Yeah, hi, my name is Elaine Fleming, I'm from Edmonton. This is just a question, nobody's going to have time to answer it, but I think I would be remiss if I didn't ask this on behalf of everybody that I know who's under 35, who would probably put this question to you, gentlemen. And this is for all of you to think about, and everybody here. If one of the major problems is the volatility of our non-renewable resources, of the prices, or our reliance on those non-renewable resources, is there any forward thinking in terms of alternatives for the development of our economy?
Oh man, that's like, since I was in high school in Bonnie-Doon in 1969, we've been talking in the province about diversification of our economy. The answer is yes. We all were, even the opposition parties, everybody, we want to find ways to have more revenue come into the government coffers and to be able to be there when the non-renewable resource revenue goes down. We struggle to find exactly what that is. There's some good things happening in agriculture, byproducts down in southern Alberta for the most part, and creating those kind of revenues from those sources. But that is talked a lot about inside the government, almost on a daily basis. And there's no magic bullet that solves that problem of where that next amount of revenue is going to come from.
Thank you. Elaine, you raised a very important point. On the energy sector, we do need to diversify our markets and build value in the current energy sector that we currently have, which means give incentives for more upgrading here at home, more value-add jobs. But we need to diversify beyond just oil. And the key is knowledge-based industries, innovation and technology, research and development. I showed you the evidence on education spending, and our greatest resource isn't what's in the ground, it's what's above the ground. It's our children. It's the knowledge that they can gain in their brains and what they can do with that knowledge. That's why it's important. The Alberta Liberals would do the largest investment in Alberta history, from early childhood development to K-12 education to post-secondary in Canadian history. Because we know in order to bring that next economy, the next billion-dollar idea, it's going to be done here in Alberta. But we have to invest in that today. By cutting it today, we have just put our future economy at risk. So we would not only reverse the cuts, we would invest heavily to put us back on the trajectory to before 2008. Even Premier Klein understood that, hey, he had to invest in education. Since Premier Klein left, we've actually been starving education. I give you evidence and facts and data. We need to get these 1,000 teachers back into the school system. Our teachers need the support in the classroom for the kids. We need the wraparound services. Let's build our schools as community hubs. Research and development is the key. It's all education.
Thanks. I don't have time to give you the full accounting of the New Democrats' plan for diversifying the economy, but I will just mention one thing, and that has to do with energy. First of all, the first point I want to make is that we need to make sure that we are upgrading the bitumen in Alberta as much as possible. And that creates good long-term jobs. Pipelines create temporary construction jobs, but take very few people to operate them. And if we're just scooping the stuff up and sending it to the Gulf Coast or sending it to China, we're sending jobs and billions of dollars of value-added investment with it. So that's the first thing that I want to say. The second thing that I want to say is we need to invest in renewable energy. There will come a time when the rest of the world will make decisions about the use of hydrocarbons for fuels, including Alberta's, and those will not be decisions we get to make here. And unless we prepare now to build an energy economy that is different from the hydrocarbon economy, we are going to end up as a ghost province. And I think that that's the lack of vision that I see in this government right now, is that they don't see that coming. It will get here, it might be 10 years or 20, but it's coming.
So I think one of the things that we should think about is, why do we pay taxes? Why should we pay taxes? And it's not just me, because I want to live in a community where people don't go hungry or homeless or without health care or without addictions care or without good roads to drive on or schools to go to or anything else. So maybe we have to think about why we're paying taxes, and then we have to decide which taxes we think are worth paying. And then we have to work out how we're going to pay for them. That's the way we do it at home. When our car needs repaired, we don't say, oh dear. We work out how we can pay to make that happen. So maybe that's where we need to start.